It's always a pleasure to be able to share with you this morning. I don't know how many of you have any experience with early Christmas presents. I know growing up in my house, we didn't have a whole lot of experience with early Christmas presents because my parents told my sisters and I growing up that if they caught us snooping for presents, they're going to take them all back. And so my parents, if you know my parents, they were not one to make empty threats, so we believed them. And we did not snoop because we knew that would probably be the case. I do remember one instance, though, when I was younger. I was probably about 11 years old, and I can remember a case where I kind of had a little bit of like an early Christmas present. So my mom and I were shopping, and we had this store in our little town. It's called Big Wheel. I don't know if there's any of them still around, okay? So this was, our town eventually got a Walmart, but this was before we had a Walmart. This is Big Wheel. This is kind of the closest thing we had. And so Big Wheel is kind of like a Kmart, but it's a little bit slow or a little bit smaller. So there's no groceries or anything like that. It's just, hardware, maybe some toys, things like that. But they did have a video game section. So when my mom was shopping, I went to the video game section. And that year for my Christmas list, and it was funny, I was just telling my wife about, I can remember every Christmas growing up because I based it on video games. I was pretty much obsessed with video games as a kid. And so I can remember that Christmas I asked for probably the greatest regular Nintendo. Now some of you younger kids, this is how old I am. Regular Nintendo, the very first Nintendo. Okay? So one of the greatest regular Nintendo games ever made, in my opinion anyway, and that was Tecmo Super Bowl. I mean, that game was awesome. Okay, this game was Madden before Madden, all right? It was unbelievable. So, it had all the NFL teams, which had never been done before. It had every NFL team on there. It had all the rosters on there. I mean, it even had, people, you could play through an actual season, which you could never do before. All the players had ratings of their individual abilities, and those ratings would fluctuate week to week depending on what kind of condition that player was in. I mean, players would get injured, be out 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it was just unbelievable, this game. And so, obviously, I put that on my Christmas list. And so my mom and I were shopping at Big Wheel, and I was in the video game section, and she came to pick me up hey, we're leaving, we're getting out of here. And she looks, and she sees that they have Tecmo Super Bowl in their video game section, and it was on sale. It was on sale. It was a really good price. And so she looks at me, she goes, "No, I know you asked for this, and it's on sale. Is it okay if we just go ahead and buy it now? Okay, and you're getting that for Christmas." I'm like, "Absolutely, no problem." But she says, "But you can't play it until Christmas." Okay, all right, fine. Well, I'm getting Tecmo Super Bowl. Fine, okay. So I'm like, I was just too happy to even think about the repercussions of that. So after we got done at Big Wheel, we left and went to our video rental store. Now, they used to have these things back in the day where you would go. We did not have YouTube. We did not have Netflix. We didn't have Disney Plus. We had to go to the place, rent the movie, bring it home. So we were going to rent a movie that night for our family, and they also rented video games. And so I looked, and they had Tecmo Super Bowl that I could rent, and I'm like, well, I'm getting it for Christmas anyway. Why not rent it and play it? My mom goes, nope, you're going to wait until Christmas. And I'm like, but it's right there. I can just rent it. I'm getting it anyway. No, you are waiting until Christmas. And so I ended up, waiting until Christmas, and it was amazing. I opened it up Christmas Day, and it was great, And I mean, the whole point of me telling you that story is not to say, I'm not throwing my parents under the bus. I'm not doing that because I'm glad I did wait because it was more fun on Christmas Day. And I'm not doing that to make that point that we should wait for all that stuff. Okay, my point is this: is that what we have right now and what we want to talk about today is an early Christmas present that Jesus is going to give us. And unlike Tecmo Super Bowl, you can have it now. You don't have to wait until Christmas. You can have it now, okay? So what we're going to do today is we're going to look, our main text today is going to be John chapter 14, verse 27. And that's going to be our main text today. And we're going to have some other passages, but that's going to be the driving focus today. So John 14, 27, Jesus says this. He says, "I am leaving you with a gift." Here's our early Christmas present. "Peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid." Okay, so today what I want to look at is I want to really focus on that second statement that Jesus makes, is that the peace that I give is a gift the world cannot give. Okay, the world just cannot give it. And so I want to focus on the very first part of the message this morning on why is that? Why is Jesus' gift superior to what the world offers us? Because he says the world cannot give you the same kind of peace that I can give you. And I want to investigate why is that, okay? So the first reason that Jesus' peace is superior to anything that the world can offer you is this. It says Jesus' peace is a gift. It's not an achievement. Okay, he says the first statement he makes there, I'm giving you a gift, peace of mind and heart. It's a gift. It's not an achievement. You see, the world tells us that we have to get all our ducks in a row, and then we can have peace. We can make sure everything's under control. All the Christmas presents are wrapped. The lights are up. All of this stuff. If that gets done, then we can have peace. And Jesus says, no, my peace is not something that you can achieve. My peace is a gift. And I think a really good illustration of this is a story in the book of Luke. And you can see in this story that Jesus' peace is not something that you can achieve. It's something you receive. And so we're going to look at the story in the book of Luke of Mary and Martha. And this is in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And it says this, as Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me. But the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all of these details. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken from her. I mean, how many of us feel like Mary, particularly this time of year, right? You got all this stuff you got to do. You might have family coming over. You got to prepare the big dinner. You got to get, all your presents. All of this stuff has to be done. But there's no peace there, right? And again, I don't want to read into the story. I want to let the story speak for itself. But if you look at Martha, she was worried, she was upset, and that's what Jesus says, dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these things. He didn't correct her like, hey, you shouldn't be preparing this big dinner. He didn't say that. You don't have to, he didn't say you can't do any of this stuff. It was her attitude that was the problem. He said, you're worried and upset, and it kind of echoes our main passage in our text. Don't be troubled or afraid. Right? And so you see Martha here, she's trying to worried and upset over all these details, getting everything right for the dinner. I mean, do you really think it would have mattered for that dinner with Jesus if like the mashed potatoes didn't just taste just right? You think it would have mattered? Probably not. Okay? Jesus was there. I mean, do you really think if like the turkey was a little dry, do you think it really would have mattered? No, Jesus was there, right? She said, you're worried and upset over all these details. And it's like, no, look, Mary's chosen the better one. He said, she's here receiving my peace. You're trying to work for it. She's receiving it. She's chosen better, and it won't be taken away from you. And that's the thing. We can never work and earn and get everything just right to have peace because it's never going to be just right. It's just a moving target. You're never going to find peace that way. Instead, Jesus says, come to me, and I'll give you my peace. You can't earn it. You can't work for it. Okay? I give it to you. It's a gift. It's not an achievement. And to be honest, those are the type of gifts that I like, right? One of the jobs I worked several years ago, it's a long time ago, I had to raise 75% of my salary. So I had to go around to different places and ask for money all the time. I mean, 75% of my salary. So I hated doing that, honestly. I mean, most people don't like going and asking people for money. I hated it. And so they came to me one day, and my boss came to me one day and said, hey, Jeff, guess what? Good news. You get a raise. And you know what I said? No, thank you. I don't want it. I'm like, what do you mean? If I get a raise, that means I got to raise more money. I don't want to do that. It's not a gift. It's not something that I really want. Okay? And that's the same thing that the peace that the world offers you. It says, no, you got to earn it. You got to get everything in a row. You've got to have everything just right. That's not a gift. Jesus is saying, no, here's a gift. I'm going to give it to you. So Jesus' peace is a gift. It's not an achievement. It's not something that you achieve. It's something that you receive. And that's why it's better than anything the world can offer you. The second reason that Jesus' peace is better is that Jesus' peace is substantial. And what I mean by substantial, I want to take that root word substantial, the word substance. It actually has substance behind it. It's not an illusion. It's not wishful thinking. It's substantial. There's really something there behind it. Isaiah 55 verse 2 says, "Why spend your money on food that does not give you strength? Why pay for food that does you no good? Listen to me and you will eat what's good and you will enjoy the finest food." And so right there, Isaiah is talking to the people of Israel, and he's saying, look, why are you chasing after all of these things that aren't real? You're chasing after all of these things that are just really an illusion. He said, look, and you're spending your own money on that. Like you're spending your time, energy, and strength on these things that aren't real. He says, look, come to me and I'll give you the best thing and I'm going to give it to you for free, right? And so the peace that the world offers, there's really nothing really behind it. And the thing that you can really see at this time of year particularly, I think, because this is when some of these empty cliches that the world tries to tell you, you see it a lot. So we like to watch Christmas comedies this time of year, and we were watching one particular Christmas comedy. I'm not going to say the name of it because I'm not trying to bag on this movie. I really like this movie. I'm going to continue to watch this movie. It's not going to ruin my enjoyment of this movie. But there's a part in this movie where there's a kid, and he said he's feeling bad about himself. He says, boy, I've done a lot of really bad things, and the lady tells him, well, did you know that a good deed can erase a bad one? I'm like, really? Okay, where did you get that from? That's what she said. A good deed can erase a bad one. And then the kid goes, it can? And she says, yeah, it can. So if you can find something good to do, then it's going to erase those bad deeds you did. And he's like, oh, but I've done a lot of really bad deeds. And she goes, but on Christmas Eve, it counts for more. And it's like, boy, that sounds great, but where are you getting that from? Like, did you find that on a signpost somewhere? Or did you find it on Google? Like, where in the world did you find this? Like, it's just wishful. It sounds good, makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but there's really nothing there behind that, right? And the thing, and that's the kind of stuff that the world tells you, like, oh yeah, you can work and get everything straight, and everything's going to be just fine for you. It's like, really? Is it? Where are you getting that from? Can you guarantee that? The world overpromises and underdelivers. Okay, it promises you that you can find peace by working for it, by finding the Christmas joy in your heart, whatever that means. But it overpromises, but it underdelivers. And it underdelivers because it has no power. The world has no power to keep its promises. All of the things that it's going to offer you, it has no power to keep it. Only God has that. I mean, you think about it, like the world, says if you have everything just right and in order, that you can have peace. And the cruel joke of that is how much of our lives do we really have control over? Let's think about this. Can't control. My football coach used to say this in football. You can't control the weather, you can't control the officials, and you can't control the other team. Okay, and I think that kind of applies to life too. I mean, we can't control the weather. We can't even let alone predict the weather, let alone control it. I mean, we know that better than anybody. We're trying to have a Christmas in the village outside, and it's going to rain tonight, right? I mean, we can't control the weather, right? But the world tries to tell you it can, but it can't. You can't control biology. Sometimes you get bad news from the doctor. You have no control over that, right? You just can't. Those are things you can't control. You can't control other people. Particularly this time of year, you can't control other people. And if you really think that you can control other people, come spend a day with me over at elementary school, and you will find very quickly you cannot control other people. It just doesn't work. And in fact, I find that the most frustrated students that I have, those are the ones that are always like, Mr. Weaver, they're saying mean things. Mr. Weaver, they're not playing by the rules. Mr. Weaver, they're not doing that. And it's like, well, what can you do about that? Like, you can't control them. If you're waiting for somebody to control all these other people, you're going to be miserable because you can't control other people. And so, but the world says you got to, and that's the cruel trick of the world. It says, well, you got to get all your ducks in a row. And you're like, I can't control all these other things. and you end up losing the very thing that you're trying to find. You're trying to find peace, and you end up losing it. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Christmas Vacation. That's one of my favorite Christmas movies, is Christmas Vacation. And Clark Griswold, I mean, he's out for a quest to have the perfect family Christmas. That's what he wants. Perfect family Christmas. So he does everything to try and get all his ducks in a row, try to get everything organized, trying to have the best, the happiest Christmas, and everything goes terribly wrong. Just terribly wrong, everything. I mean, the people are acting crazy. I mean, they find a squirrel in the tree that they have. I mean, all kinds of disasters happen outside of his control. And what's funny is that at the end of that movie, he basically loses his mind at the end of that movie, because he's trying to control all of this stuff. He's trying to find peace. He's trying to get it all together, and he can't do it. He can't find peace in all of that stuff, and he just loses his mind, right? And I think that's when we try to follow what the world says, we're going to find the same thing, is that we can't control all of this stuff. Only God can do that. That's the kind of God that we have. Okay, the world can't control all this stuff. God can. I mean, let's just think about just the Christmas story, for example. God demonstrating his control. So, it was prophesied that Jesus was going to be born, the Messiah was going to be born in Bethlehem, right? Mary and Joseph lived in Nazareth. So how did God get two people from Nazareth, about 70 miles, down to Bethlehem? How did he do that? Well, it said that there was a decree from Caesar Augustus. That means God influenced the entire Roman government to get two people to move 70 miles. That's the kind of God we serve, okay? He can move two people 70 miles by influencing the entire world, okay? How did he get the wise men from where they were at in the east to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem? How did he get them there? Well, he had a star. He influenced the cosmos, planets, orbits. He influenced that to get those people to the manger. I mean, that's crazy if you think about that. That our God is in control of that stuff. He's in control of the weather. He's in control of governments. He's in control of people. He's in control of all of this stuff. So he actually is in the right position to guarantee peace. He's the only one that can do that. It says in Psalm chapter 115, verse 3, it says, "Our God is in the heavens, and he does as he wishes." That's the kind of God we serve. He does as he wishes. Isaiah 14:27 says, "The Lord of heaven's armies has spoken. Who can change his plans? When his hand is raised, who can stop him?" The kind of God that we serve stands unopposed. There's only one person that can make the claims that he does, and that's God. That's it. The world cannot offer that type of peace. Only God can. No one can oppose him. He does what he wants. He stands unopposed. In Isaiah 46, verses 9 and 10, it says, "Remember the things I have done in the past, for I alone am God. I am God, and there is none like me. Only I can tell you the future before it even happens. Everything I plan will come to pass, for I do whatever I wish." Right? God doesn't fail. He does what he wants. His plans, what he plans to do, it happens. He's the only one that can say that. He said, "There's none like me." He's the only one that can say that. The world cannot offer that. There's no substance behind it. God says, "Oh yeah, I'm the only one that has substance behind this." Okay? And this is all really huge. This is really powerful statements here. Okay? But a lot of times what happens is we don't tend to think of it as something that's still concrete, something that's real, something that you can see, taste, touch, not real yet. Okay? Well, I think there's one more piece to this, that our God is powerful. He does what he wants. His plans come to pass. There's one more piece, I think, that you can add to this that just makes it absolutely certain. And this is in Romans chapter 8:32, and it says this: "Since he did not spare even his own son, but gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else?" Okay? And so there's a couple things that you can infer from this verse. When he says that, but before we say those things, we got to clear some things up. It says, won't he give us everything else? That means he gives us the things that he gives us. It's everything. It's the things we think are good, the things we think are bad, the things that are pleasant, the things that are painful. He gives us everything else. But you can't forget that first part. Since he did not spare even his own son, that's the hard thing, but gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else? So influencing world governments, influencing circumstances, nature, that stuff is the easy thing. Giving his son was the hard thing. So if he's going to do that, then he's certainly going to do that he's going to give us everything else. And so we can infer two things from this. First thing is that the things that happen to us in our lives are not random. They're not random. Okay? It says he gives us everything else. They're coming from God. So the things that happen to us in our lives are not random. There's a purpose. There's a plan behind them. And secondly, since he did not spare his son, those things that he gives us are going to be good for us. If he's going to die for us, he's not going to die for us and then just destroy us. That wouldn't make any sense. But because he died for us, he's going to use all of these things that happen in our lives, and he's going to do it for our good. It's not random. It's for our good. And that is substantial. That happened. That really did happen. Jesus died for us. He came. He was here. He was a person. It's not theoretical. It did happen. It's not anything about philosophy, anything. This actually did happen, right? And so there's nothing more rock solid and substantial than this. Since Jesus died for us, we know that nothing happens randomly, and it's for our good. And that is a source of peace that the world cannot give you. It just can't. It has no power that God does. All right? And the last thing is this. The third thing is Jesus' peace is lasting. And it says in John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17, it says, "Do not love the world or the things it offers you. For when you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and a pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from this world. And this world is fading away along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever." So the things that the world offers you, this achievements, this pleasure, all of these things that it offers you, it doesn't last. You might find peace temporarily, but it will not last. Right? It doesn't. It just flat out says these things fade away. They don't last. On the other hand, the peace that Jesus offers does last. And I want to look at Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. It says, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus." I want to look at that part where it says his peace will guard your hearts and your minds. Okay? If his peace is guarding your heart and your mind, it's going to last, because a guard that doesn't last isn't really much of a guard at all, is it? I mean, if Chase back there was here for 5 minutes and then left, that really wouldn't help, right? I mean, he'd be here for 5 minutes. What happens when he's not there, right? Not much of a guard then, right? I mean, we have security cameras at home, and it always frustrates my wife, for good reason too. It frustrates my wife, like when we have these security cameras, and it's supposed to alert us when somebody comes into our driveway or our yard. Well, there's been a couple instances where somebody has walked right through our yard and it didn't alert us at all. And she's like, "Why are we paying all this money for this stuff when it's not working? It's not going to guard anything." And it's like, it's a good question. It is a good question. If it's not guarding anything, then and it doesn't last, then what's the point, right? It says that Jesus' peace will guard your hearts and minds. It's going to last. Otherwise, it's not doing a very good job of guarding. And then in Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3, it says, "You will keep in perfect peace all who trust in you and whose thoughts are fixed on you." And I want to see, it says you is talking about God there. God will keep in perfect peace. He's the one doing the keeping, right? If he's the one doing the keeping, then it's going to last, because we know that our God is eternal. He lasts. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't fall asleep. He doesn't wear out. He continues to keep you in perfect peace. It's up to him. It's not anything we achieve. It's up to him. He will keep us in perfect peace. So if he keeps us in perfect peace, that's going to last. All right, so just kind of wrapping that part of it up, we're going to go back to the verse that we started with, John 14:27. It says, "I'm leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid." And so Jesus' peace is superior because it's a gift, it's not an achievement, it's substantial, and it's lasting. Okay, so what's our response to this? Well, the end of the verse says, don't be troubled or afraid, right? So don't be troubled or afraid. Now, that's easier said than done, right? It's almost like Bob Newhart had a sketch on Mad TV several years ago where he was a counselor, and people would come to him for advice or for counseling, and they'd tell him their problems, and he'd just say, well, stop it. You mean that's it? Stop it? Yeah, stop it. Okay. I mean, and so they'd say, but I don't know how. Well, do you want to be alone forever? No. Well, then stop it. Do you want to be terrified of being buried alive? Well, no. Then stop it. Just don't do it. Right? It's don't be troubled or afraid. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you a little. We're going to talk about kind of 3 steps to kind of take Jesus' gift and apply this to our lives. And I want to put it in terms of Christmas terminology, so that way it's a little bit easier to understand, okay? So, don't be troubled or afraid. So how can we put this into practice? Well, the first thing we do is we ask for Jesus' peace. We put it on the list. Ask him for his peace, right? Because it says in the book of James, you have not. Why? Because you ask not. You don't ask, so you don't have. So put it on the list. Ask him, Jesus, I'm not feeling your peace right now. I'm nervous. I'm afraid. I'm troubled. I'm afraid. Can you have your peace, please? And it's kind of like Tecmo Super Bowl. You can put it on the list. You know you're getting it, right? It's promised. You know you're getting it, so go ahead and ask for it, right? Okay, first thing is ask. Put it on the list. Second step is to accept it. Unwrap the gift. You got to take it out of the pack. You got to unwrap the gift, right? You can get all these presents and stuff, but unless you open them, unless you accept them, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. Okay, you accept this gift. You say, Jesus, you've promised this peace. I know I've asked for it. You've promised it. I'm going to accept this peace. I know you've given this to me. And then the last step is to act on it. Take it out of the box. Take it out of the box and play with it. Can you imagine on Christmas Day, after I've been waiting all December to play this game, and I got it for Christmas? We didn't have wrapping paper. That's a long story, but I'm not going to get into that now. But that's for another time. But I got my gift, and I just left it in the box and said, wow, what a great game. This is awesome. What a great game. I never took it out of the box and played it, right? You got to take it out of the box. You got to act on it. And so kind of an example I kind of have in my life is just a couple weeks ago, I had I was blessed to be able to coach in a state championship football game. And before that game, I was nervous. I will tell you, I was nervous. It was a pretty big, we're playing in an NFL stadium. I had to take 2 elevators to get up to the press box, like 2 separate elevators to get there. It was a lot going on, and it was big. I was nervous, right? And so, I prayed, I asked God for peace, but I was still nervous, right? I asked for peace, I was still nervous. Now, did I wait until I stopped being nervous to leave the locker room? No, I would have never left the locker room. We would have played the game. I'd been sitting in the locker room the whole time if I would have waited till I had peace to go do it. Okay, to act on it means, look, I'm going to go do what I need to do, okay? And God's peace comes along the way. That's how it normally works. God's peace comes along as you act on that. And fortunately, I was able to kind of settle down and calm down and actually, coach in the game. But a lot of times we think, when we ask for God's peace, it's like, oh, Lord, I don't feel like peace. I got to go to this Christmas gathering. My family's just driving me crazy. Lord, I ask for your peace, and you just stay in your room until you feel peace. No, that's not how it works. You're going to stay in there the whole time, right? You act. You go out there. You engage with your family, and the peace comes as you act. It comes in the acting, in the obedience. And so that is how we take Jesus' gift that he offers us, a gift that's better than anything the world can offer us, and that's how we put it into practice. We ask him for it first. We accept it. We unwrap the gift, and then we act on it. We take it out of the box. And so my prayer for us this Christmas season and all the time, not just this Christmas season, all the time, is that we can experience this gift that Jesus has given us, this peace that is lasting, that is substantial, and it's something that you can't do on your own. And so at this time, I'd like to invite TJ to come up as we close. And I'd just like you to bow as we pray.